you got to be there every day. And as a parent, you got to show up every day. And as a spouse, you got to show up every day. But you've also got to have that faith element too, because when things get ugly, and they're not, because it's not always, sunshine and roses as we know.
Right.
You've got to have showed up every day, and that's what gets you through those hard days, because you still got to show up.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Solid. We are on episode 51. I can't believe it's almost been a year we've been recording these.
It's awesome.
It is awesome. And we have a great couple on with us today. This is actually relatives of Jeff and Kelsey. It's actually Kelsey's aunt and uncle. And we're glad to have them on today. Tucker and Sherri Nipko is their name. And Tucker is, for a living, he does commercial real estate. And then Sherri works with an organization called Operation Underground Railroad. A lot of you probably heard about that. But we wanted to have them on today to talk a little bit about those things, but also more importantly, just the success they've had in their family. They've got incredible kids that are all grown now, 9 grandkids. And we wanted to kind of interview them and see what they've done to have a successful marriage and successful relationship with their kids. And I thought it was awesome. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was incredible. I think so many of you guys are going to get just so many solid principles on how to have a great marriage, raise great kids, be a pillar of your community, and just live a fulfilling life. Mm-hmm. So you guys are going to love this one. I'm so glad that we had Tucker and Sherri on today.
Yeah, me too. So be sure to like and subscribe if you would. Feel free to comment. Let us know what else you would like to maybe have us do or talk about. And we do have some exciting things we're working on right now. We're working on a challenge called Solid 30. We're about to launch that, and it's better than 75 hard.
Way better.
So when we get that, we'll get you all the details for that. But listen to this one closely. It'll really impact your life in a positive way. Thanks, guys.
Back in the day when we were your age, low-fat diet was the thing,
Mm-hmm. And look what happened. All those politicians are now running the world. We know what it did to their brains.
Well, it's no coincidence that you've got all these states passing that marijuana is legal, because all the leaders, political leaders, they want to justify what they're doing. So make it legal.
Well, yeah,
because they were doing it back in the 60s and 70s.
Yep, exactly. That's it. So, I don't know. God bless America 40 years from now. It's going to be scary. But, I don't know. It's a crazy thing.
What will you identify as by then, do you think?
I'll identify now.
I'll identify as dead.
As Mr. Freedom. Free. A free man.
So when did you go to ALTA, Tucker?
I graduated in 84.
Okay. So you were one of the first classes, weren't you?
Yeah, I think 79 was the first class, and I was the third one that went all 4 years. Back when I was going, ninth graders were in high school.
Okay. All right. Good deal.
So you guys both went to the same high school?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome.
Yep.
Both wrestled?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah. They've redone the whole school now.
He probably wore my old wrestling uniform.
Uh-huh. Maybe. What weight did you wrestle?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
98 through 126.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
98 pounds in high school.
As a freshman.
Dang, dude.
126 as a senior.
Yeah.
Wow.
I got down to 125 as a senior. I was normally about 140, 145. But
you're not far from there now.
Yeah, I'm a little further.
Well, I'm way further.
Yeah, in high school, I was pretty much the same size. I was about 165, 170 pounds in high school.
Yeah.
But I never cut.
Mm-hmm.
I was a boxer. If you cut weight, then those guys are too fast. I can't see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather them be bigger and slower.
Yeah.
Not smaller and fast.
Yeah. I hated cutting weight. I did not like it.
I don't think it's healthy. We were actually we were looking at a study because Aspen's doing gymnastics, and so we were trying to determine whether or not our kids should be lifting weights, or they're doing all this physical activity. Like, is it good for them? And there's a study that shows gymnasts are smaller and wrestlers are smaller. Those are the two smallest people sports, right? And the reason why is because they're so lean that your body doesn't grow as fast during puberty. So as you're hitting puberty, your body doesn't have all the nutrients it needs to grow.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't grow till after I got married.
Yeah.
I was done wrestling.
Is that what happened? No, serious. Were you
I was
were you
100.
small?
I was about 150 pounds when we got married.
Yeah. He was wrestling in college too, and he was wrestling about 134. That was your
134, 142.
Wow.
but he
Dang.
was
And how tall are
150
you?
when he got married.
5'8".
Okay, I guess that's not. I'm a little taller, and I guess 130 pounds at 5'8". It's actually not bad. If I was 130 pounds at 6'1", I'd just blow away in the wind.
You would.
Yeah.
You're a skinny guy, huh? Mm-hmm. Yep. You were probably solid muscle, though. Was he solid muscle, Sherri?
Well, back in that day, I was. I'd say it's more muscle than I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Cool.
that's a lot of years ago.
Yeah. How did you two meet?
Wrestling. Not that I wrestled.
Really?
My brother wrestled.
Okay.
And they were on the same college wrestling team. So I was the little sister in the stands. He came up into the stands and kind of went from there.
Was it love at first sight?
Oh, I always thought she was cute. I told her brother that one time, and he says, "Well, you should date her,"
Wow.
and I didn't.
Well, and then I went to a wrestling practice, and I picked him up. I was picking up my brother. We were going to come down to Southern Utah to visit some people, and Tucker jumped in my car. Didn't know really who he was, and he was all sweaty. It was right after practice.
Oh, we knew each other.
Well, we knew. Just we'd had a conversation or two, and then he said, "So when are you going to ask me out?" I mean, he said, "When are we going to go out?" And I said, "I guess when you ask me." He got out of the car and left.
You were playing. You were like
Okay.
playing hard.
Was
to get
it? Was that a
bit.
form of rejection? Is that were you thinking that
I
at that
was
time?
just
Well,
no.
it was
just
one
like,
of those questions so that you could set yourself up so you knew if you should ask her out or not.
Yeah,
So
you're
you
testing
could-
the waters.
You could avoid a rejection if needed.
It's actually really
there you
smart.
go. Yeah.
but I was dating somebody else.
That's
at
a
the
good.
time.
Okay.
But 6 months later, then we. Did you
It
actually
wasn't
ask me
6 months
out?
later. That was probably a month later we started dating after that.
Oh, I don't know. It was a long time ago.
How long you been?
How
that
many
was
years?
35 years ago.
35
Almost
years.
36. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, how many years have you been married?
35. It'll be
35
36
years.
this fall.
Of total
That's
bliss.
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And always easy, huh?
Total
No problems.
bliss.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
Total, like a lot of learning lessons.
There you go. I like it.
A lot of growth.
Yeah. That's cool. 35 years.
Yeah.
How many kids you have?
Four.
4.
They're all grown, all married, 9 grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was telling Brandon before you guys got here, one of the things that I really respect about you guys, is a lot of people, they'll have kids, 4 or 5 or 6 kids, especially in Utah. And there's, usually 1 or 2 of them that go a little crazy. But you guys have all your kids have done an amazing job, got great spouses.
They have. They're good kids. I guess, we did some things right. We were lucky. I think we balanced each other well. We're not at all alike. And that was one of the learning curves, is learning how to balance each other and then balance our family that way. In fact, I was talking to Walker, our youngest, I think just yesterday, and he talked about how he was laughing because I'm the disciplinarian. And he wasn't. He was the fun parent. I was the disciplinarian.
Wow.
But they were talking about how I was also the one that when they wanted to do something, Dad would just say no. And Mom would go to battle for him. Well, I think they should be able to do these things. So we did balance each other well.
That's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
My secret to it was I just married well.
Smart.
It does. It makes it, I say that a little bit sarcastic, but it makes a huge difference on who you marry. And
Yeah, I actually believe, I tell people, other than your decision to follow Christ, the most important decision you'll make in your life is who you choose as your spouse. I mean,
Amen.
When it comes to success in anything, really, right?
And I think that where we are a lot different, our core value system was the same.
Yeah.
What we wanted long term, what we wanted our family to look like, what we wanted those values, what was success to us,
Yeah.
that was the same. But our personalities, as the way we handled things, completely different. So that was.
I think that's such a, I don't know who we were talking about opposites attracting. The other day we were talking about how it's kind of a myth that opposites attract, right? But as you guys are saying, your personalities are different. I think it's great advice for somebody, whether they're looking for a spouse or they're just, just dating or whatever. Is this person going to work? It's those core values. Like, do we see things similar on whether it's our spiritual life or religious life or family? What do we want our family to look like? And those kind of things.
Where did you get the foundation to that in both of your families? Is that something your parents both instilled in you? Was that something that you learned from leaders in your life? Where did all that?
Well, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, but there's defining moments. Yeah. One defining moment for us was, she came from a family that was not active in the religion. Kind of haphazard. I mean, if they'd rather go boating on Sunday or snowmobiling if they could. That kind of a thing.
But very family oriented.
It was always family oriented. And I came from a family. We were probably more, I'd say, active than what her family was, but still, not fully committed. And I just remember our oldest kids were probably 4 and 2. They were young, and we'd bought a camper, and we were coming back from camping one weekend and driving down, the road there, Pleasant View Drive, and all of our neighbors that were coming from church were coming the other way, and we're pulling in our camper, and we both just, we got home and we just both felt like, this, either this is true and we need to commit to it, or it's not. Why are we straddling the fence?
Yeah.
It's one way or the other.
Yeah.
And we knew it was true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we thought, well, we better act like it. And we also knew that if we didn't act that way, that our kids would probably have that propensity to not, accept it or straddle the fence in some sort. And we just decided that was what we were going to do, and it was one of those long-term decisions.
Yeah. When we had to decide, and it really was a defining moment, and we both remember that conversation where we said, What do we believe? What do we want our family to look like? What do we want long-term success and goals to be? And we started looking at it. And it wasn't so much that day we decided everything, but that day we decided a path, a sure path that wasn't always easy. It was hard sometimes, especially my family, very family-oriented. We would do a lot of family things, and we had to start making a few different decisions with our kids when we were on family vacations, that the cousins were maybe doing different things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that requires you in that moment to be able to explain to your kids why. Mm-hmm. And that was a lot of our parenting things. It was never just, hey, this is what we do, and this is what we do. It was always, and this is why we do it.
Yeah. Right.
This is why we're going to
So
do
it wasn't
this.
just because I said so.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something I think that not all the time. Sometimes it was just because I said so.
Sure.
Sometimes you just have to.
Yeah.
But those long-term, those core values, you have to help your kids understand why. And then as they're growing, it's easier for them to make choices because they know why.
Yeah.
Why we're doing this.
Yeah.
I think, those moments you choose to have discipline are great moments because your kids question, why are we doing this? And that's a good teaching moment for them, right? So, Tucker, I have a question. One time, Kelsey asked you about kids. She said, hey, all your kids have done so great, and you guys have raised incredible kids. And what's your secret? And I don't know if you remember your response. You remember your response? You said, just show up, just be there, Where did you get that philosophy from? Because obviously, you guys have raised an incredible family who have all gone on to, be great kids and adults and, contributors to society. Where did you get that philosophy from? Because I think it's helped us as, for our kids.
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if I could trace that.
I know where it came from.
Where did it come from?
Ezra Taft Benson. He had a list, and it was 14 things you should do to raise good kids. I had printed it off and I'd framed it. It was framed in our house for years. There was different things like be there at mealtime. I can't even remember all of them. Okay. But the one that I really remember and just stuck with me is, and it just said, be at the crossroads.
Yeah.
And the crossroads. So for me, it was, I always worked. I worked in family business, but I was home when they got home from school.
Yeah.
I was home when they left for school. We would be the people that would say, we'll drive them. We'll drive the carpool. We'll be the parent. Sometimes that was exhausting, but it was whatever that crossroads were.
Yeah.
And so it was from that list of things.
I do remember that.
Be at the crossroads. That really
and I'm going to
stuck.
default to my previous statement. It depends on who you marry.
Yeah.
Good. Because she's the one who put that up there. But I remember my kids were little. I was, fighting through college. And I remember, the old Franklin Day Planner. And I wrote down some goals. And the top one was, tell my wife and children I love them every day.
Yeah.
And I think some of it was, and I'd hate to say it, there's times that you look back at your own parents, you're going, why did they do that? And I didn't want my kids to have that same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I guess I just pattern things. Okay. I want my kids to know that I love them every day. And even though you have to discipline them and there's some tension at times, but, I think making that real important, and we both did that very well. At least she did. I hope I did, but just that showing up. But that was part of letting the kids know that you love them and that they were more important than your job.
Yeah,
that they were more important than your. I talked about a hunting trip. More important than your hunting trip, and you're taking that time to be at. You're talking about your kids' gymnastics and those things that they're doing, and. It's just real important for kids to know that mom and dad are there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Sounds
and then
like
they grow up and then want to show up and be with you when they get older. Walker's here today with us, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I will say that with Tucker, he always wanted to be self-employed, and one of the biggest reasons is because he wanted to be at his kids' events.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really about money or success. It was like, I want to be at my kids' events.
Want to have the freedom to be able to design your life.
You're a contractor?
No, I'm a commercial real estate broker.
Commercial real estate broker. Okay. That's what you've done. Always commercial, or did you?
Most of it. I did, previous to that, I did work in her family business. They owned a power sports store, and I worked there, but I still had my freedom. I could go to my kids' events, and my in-laws were very supportive of that. They owned the business, and of course it was their grandkids. Of course they're going to be supportive of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it worked out well.
It's interesting that that's what drove you. I mean, because for me, that's how I always say. I've always said, call me Mr. Freedom. Like I just want the freedom to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. But it doesn't mean I won't outwork everybody. I just want to be able to design my schedule so that I can live life that makes me feel fulfilled. And then I'll work hard in doing these other things. But I feel like a lot of people, they'll be self-employed or whatever, just to go make a lot of money. Making a lot of money isn't fulfilling, right? There's nothing fulfilling about making a lot of money. What you choose to do with the money or the time is what becomes fulfilling, right? So if you find out that thing that drives you, then I think you're more likely to have more success in that endeavor, right? So whether it's commercial real estate or, in both of us, financial services, like I always had this reason why I was doing it, that drove me. So it's interesting that that's what it was for you.
Well, and I guess the one thing, at least this is my belief, is don't let your ambitions with accomplishing all of these worldly things overshadow what's important, which is your family.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you have these solid principles, if you will, right? Pun intended, that if you have those solid principles, they do bleed into every area of your life. I always tell my kids, show me how you do anything and I'll show you how you do everything. And if you live that way for your family and your spiritual life, naturally you're going to do those things in your business life and your career too. I always tell my kids, we'll go into different places and you'll go into a store or whatever and someone might be ornery, having a bad day, and they just don't give good customer service. Or you'll go somewhere else and they provide incredible customer service. And I'm always telling my kids, the reason why this person maybe works a job they hate is because of their attitude. They're not, they don't have a bad attitude. And that's any other reason. Well, they're there because they have a bad attitude. They're stuck there. That bad attitude keeps them there. But a person who might not be where they want to be, but they have a good attitude about it, it's not going to be long before someone gives them a better opportunity. They get a promotion, something like that, right? It's all because of their attitude and how they choose to look at those two things. And so, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Something I've been studying lately, just a lot, is really learning how to have grace for other people and charity. So when you're saying, this is something I've noticed lately, when you're watching different people like at the store who may have a bad attitude, it's having grace for them, a smile for them, and the more we're on a good path in our own lives, we can give back to other people to help pull them up. That hopefully that smile that day makes a difference in their life, and maybe they go home and they treat their children different. And so it's now that we're getting to a different stage of life, and it's grandparents, which is fun, but it's not 24/7 parenting as much. I start thinking of those different things. That how can I reach out and have an impact? Just in a different way in the world. And sometimes it's just showing up with that good attitude for somebody who has a bad attitude to help them.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here today, because I can feel, and I'd like you to comment on this a little bit if you don't mind, but I can feel you're happy. Yeah. You're fulfilled. I can see it. I can feel it. Your demeanor, the way you talk. And I think everybody's looking for that in their life, right? They want to just be fulfilled, happy, great family, all those things. But what, everyone's seeking for that. And you've already alluded to some of the things you've done and early in your life and that you do now. Anything that, a lot of people aren't there. They're frustrated with life. You're talking about, when we meet somebody out there that's having a bad day, being able to have some grace for them and maybe give them a compliment or serve them in some way. And I agree with you. I think if we're genuinely happy and then we can give, our cup is full, we can help others. But what are some things you have done or continue to do that keep you in that space? Because life's not perfect. Challenges happen. I'm sure you've had plenty of them.
Oh yeah. It's been very much a growth process. There's the ups and downs, and there's sometimes you're in the valley and sometimes you're way up, but I think the goal is to just get to where you're a little more even all the time. The valley you don't quite dip as low even when a trial comes. Right. And for me, it's been a learned thing of understanding who I really am. Who am I as really a child of God, and who is that greater force that we're okay, and that we're always okay regardless of the trials that come. Right. Something when we first got married, and we were young. We were 19 and 21 when we got married. But Tucker used to always say, anytime I would complain or just talk about something that was bothering me, his go-to line was, "I don't worry about it." Well, as a young mom, I heard, "I don't worry about. I don't care what you're worried about." Yeah. That's what I
took it as you don't care.
I don't care what you're worried about. Yeah. And it took me a lot of years, and I finally actually told him one day. I said, "If you say that one more time, we're not going to make it. I can't. You got to quit saying it." And he's over there going, "What did I say? I don't know what I said."
It's the difference between the way men think and the way women think.
Right. Yeah. But what I realized, and this was a few years ago, somebody asked me to describe Tucker. It was a group of youth to explain him, describe him. And it was really interesting. I all of a sudden had this great appreciation for him saying, "I don't worry about it," because I've watched him through our life. Because of his belief in God, because of his belief in a higher power, he really doesn't worry about things.
Faith.
If it goes sideways, it goes sideways. We start again. It was meant to be, or we'll learn from it.
Faith-based versus fear-based.
So it's really interesting that the same comment when I was in one place was offensive and hurtful, and that same comment now, it brings me hope and faith and
maybe some peace in you.
So you had to make the adjustment there.
Well, he had to quit saying it for a while. he had to quit.
You had to quit. Yeah. You had to quit showing your faith so strongly for a minute. Yeah.
I had to hide it for a minute.
They just had to say it differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I
get it.
wish more young married couples would understand that and have a conversation that maybe what you're hearing isn't what they're saying.
So do you think, like, how would you suggest, because I guarantee that's happening in relationships right now, the people that are listening, what would be your suggestion of how you wish he would have communicated that same principle? If you could go back and tell yourself, hey, here's what he's trying to say, how do you think he could have communicated that more efficiently to help you understand? Like,
That's a really good question. And I don't know, because one of the big things about our differences is I love to have conversations. I love to talk about why people do things, human behavior. He doesn't. It is what it is in his mind.
that's how I am.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I want to talk about it and I want to analyze it. And my kids would laugh and their friends would come over and say, oh, your mom, she's going to start analyzing all of our problems again. I'm like, no, we're going to solve them. This is so good. And Tucker's just like, what are you talking about? So
Problems? What are
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that it caused a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
It caused a lot of pain at times. But I don't know that I could or would change it because of going through that process of learning to understand and appreciate.
It's almost the only way
him.
you learn, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. If somebody would have just told it to me, I don't think I would have believed it.
Yeah.
What's interesting is you were showing you loved her in your way. And we all make that mistake, right? It's like, I'm showing you I love you. And it's like,
between men and women, which is why I asked that. I think the majority of relationships have some sort of issue on this topic.
But back
think it's
then,
huge.
back then, I probably couldn't have explained it to you why that was my reaction.
Well, yeah, of course not. Yeah. That's
Like I couldn't have explained why I felt that way, or and I guess over the years, we both come to that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense as to why I reacted that way, and of course she always, she loves these Enneagram things and
human behavior things.
yeah. And I could care less what I am. I am what I am, kind of a thing. And she wants to analyze everybody and everything, and how we react together. And I think over the years we've obviously figured that out a little bit, even though
So let me ask you this about
But
that.
not to judge. I just want to say this. I don't do that to judge. It's so that we can get along better. Like understanding why people are doing things.
finding
so
common
that we
ground.
Can get along. So I just want to throw that.
Yeah,
in there.
no. So I think what you're saying, Tucker, has a lot to do with self-esteem. Do you feel like you've constantly had a high self-esteem your whole life? Like, do you feel like, I believe that someone's performance in any area of life is directly related to their self-esteem. And I think someone who says a statement like you just said, hey, I am who I am, and this is me, love it or hate it, I believe comes from a place of a high self-esteem. And I don't think a lot of people have that. Do you think that, did sports help you? Was it from your parents? Was it from your faith in God? Was it your core group of friends?
Well, I think as I look back, it definitely, I probably had some of that at the time, which, as you develop, you get better at that, because I think you learn to forgive yourself. You're not perfect. Nobody else is.
Right.
And you're doing the best you can, and you just keep trying to do the best you can. But, back then I wouldn't have recognized myself as having a lot of self-esteem at that time.
Yeah.
But I do also think that you have these chips on your shoulder that, okay. And one of them, I think, we talked a little bit about wrestling, and I remember, I got to the state finals my senior year and I lost. I was second. And so I think I've always felt like, my brother, your father-in-law, Jeff, he won the title twice, that stud. And so, I've always had that chip that, okay, I didn't perform well at that moment, but you know what? I've got to keep trying. And I think that persistence is probably how that's
Progressed.
gotten to where it's at.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think what a great perspective, because not everybody wins like they want to, right? Not everything turns out. And a lot of times, one of my mentors, Bill Whittle, he always says that losing builds character. So I'm definitely going to help those other men build some character, right? The point of, hey, just winning, right? But I think if you get second place in those things, because, I was a boxer and losing in front of a crowd is never fun. But it does shape a person's perspective. But you have the choice at that moment, right? When you get second place, do you let it define you as saying, hey, I lost? Or do you let it define you of saying, hey, I have this chip. I'm going to go prove myself that I'm valuable. Did you kind of always have that chip, or do you think losing at that time gave you that? Like, I'm going to show you, or do you think that?
Oh, I know
before?
at that time it gave that to me, and even though I can't say I came out of the gates and was busting down doors and everything,
Yeah.
I just never gave up. It was always just a constant, forward motion, just keep going. But I've been validated recently because even Pete Mitchell finished second.
Yeah, it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's
true.
I think a lot of people just. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. You look at Michael Jordan. He got cut from his high school basketball team, and even he says, hey, my high school basketball coach wasn't an idiot for cutting me. I didn't deserve to be on the team at that point. But that moment is what made me. In fact, that coach made Michael Jordan, he says, that if that coach wouldn't have cut me, who knows if I would have had the grit and the determination to do what I had to do to become the greatest, right? It was that moment. It wasn't that he didn't see talent. He just wasn't that player at the time. It took that for him to become this incredible athlete, right?
We always tell our kids, because our kids all did sports, and we'd always say, you learn more from the losses than you do from the wins every time. And when you go back and you think about it and you watch it, like Mom's always over there recording, that's just what we do. But on the losses, the kids, they'd be upset for a day, but then they'd come back and they'd get that tape.
Yeah.
And they were watching it, and they were looking at their mistakes, and they were fixing it. The wins, they watched to relive the glory.
Get that dopamine hit for a minute.
To relive the glory, but they weren't looking for where they made mistakes. Because even in their wins, in their matches or in their games, there was mistakes made.
Yeah.
But when they'd win, they wouldn't go look for those mistakes to see how to correct it. And the loss, they always did. So the losses always teach us more than the wins.
Yeah.
And I think if we can take that mindset into everything in life, then we look at anything that maybe we didn't reach the goal, but what did we learn? So how is it going to take us higher in a different way?
Yep. Yeah, I just watched this clip on Instagram. It's going viral. NBA basketball player just kept getting interviewed by the same guy, and the guy, he had lost another shot for the finals, and the guy said, hey, so do you look at this season as a failure? And he said, you asked me that same question last year. I don't know if you guys have seen the clip. And he said, so you have a job, right? And the guy goes, yeah. And he goes, what's your goal at your job? To get a promotion every year? He goes, do you get a promotion every year? And the guy goes, no. And he goes, so is your job just a failure? He's like, no, you want to provide for your family. You want to put them in a nice home and maybe retire your parents, but you don't look at it as a failure. He said Michael Jordan, he won 6 championships, but he played for 15 years. So were 9 of those years failures? No, they were the years that made him learn to be able to go win in those other years, right? Yeah. Same thing as us in our careers or whatever, There's times in my career, I know I didn't get the promotion when I wanted it or whatever. And it was like, all right, the next year, like one of the things we always did is make December our biggest month. It was like, all right, everybody takes it off. And that was because there were times where other people got promoted and we didn't. We're like, dang it, we're never going to let that happen again. From now on, we're going to win. And so I think that's such a great perspective of, when you lose, you just have to take that perspective of, okay, I'm going to use that as a learning experience and grow from it. Right? How awesome. So let me ask you this. Let's kind of change subjects for a second. I know one of the things we've talked about in the past is OUR, and I think that's what you're currently doing right now, right? Yeah. Working with Tim. I think in the world we live in today, there's nothing more important. In fact, he just posted a tweet that I think is going viral right now, all this crazy stuff that's happening in the world. And he said, just look, he's been fighting, I guess, pedophiles for how many years now, right? A lot of years. And said that, all this craziness that's happened, he's watched it happening. Now it's being normalized in our country. What is your perspective about, I think you found something that you're super passionate about and what you get to do. And so what's your perspective about what's happening in the world today? Obviously, you guys have grandkids and children that are being raised maybe talk a little bit about what you do and kind of your perspective about what you guys are doing to strengthen your family and strengthen their perspectives, because you're in the heart of seeing all this craziness that's happening in the world right now. So kind of what's your perspective about all this?
I think maybe too, but as you answer that, how did you get started with that?
Yeah.
And then all that. I mean, that's,
Okay, so
that's a lot of questions for you.
no.
It is, yeah.
The way I got
a lot to
started,
unpack.
yeah, there's a lot there. But actually, back in 2016, I think I went to one of their films, and then I just started volunteering back right when Tim first started, and I started volunteering. Then my family was junior high school. I couldn't really volunteer. We live up north. It was too far of a drive, but I always kept watching them. And then as they all left home. And I had always worked for family, but I worked for family. It was good working for family, good living, but it was never my passion.
Right.
It was my dad's passion, and good for him. But I decided I needed to go do something different. Tucker and I, because of our differences, we have a great marriage. We don't work well together. And we know that. That's great. He does his thing. I do my thing. So I started volunteering again.
You mean you don't want Sherri to be your assistant or
No.
be
Although I'm very good at it. It's just that then we don't have a good marriage.
no, I get it.
Well, I think that's an important thing, because I think sometimes people think that there's something wrong if that's the dynamic, and it's not necessarily true, right? Some people do work good together and others
Right.
don't.
Yep.
That doesn't mean you can't have the incredible marriage.
My parents worked really well together, but he and I, we preferred that our marriage is good.
She's a 6, I'm an 8. Does that explain it?
That's the secret. That's what we've been trying to pull out of you all day.
To explain.
We've been waiting for that the whole time.
He doesn't even know what it means. So I started volunteering again. It just one of those just really funny things. I was volunteering 2 months later. I just have this thought, ask him what it takes to work there, and I just laugh like, what am I going to do working there? It didn't go away, so I texted somebody I knew the other day. He said, hey, I'm just curious, how do you get a job there? And they're like, oh, do you need a job? And I said, no. I was just curious. Next thing I know, I'm working part-time. Next thing I know, I'm working full-time. Next thing I know, I'm switching departments, and I've been an executive assistant there now for a few years, and in the middle of a lot, seeing a lot. The problem, as far as the problem in the world, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand, is that just the nature of what our society is allowing and saying, this inclusion of everyone.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, it's hurting kids.
Yes.
There has to be boundaries. There
Real
just has to be
quick,
boundaries.
for people that are listening that don't know what OUR is, or Operation Underground Railroad, would you just explain it real quick?
We're a nonprofit organization, and we focus on rescuing kids from trafficking, child sex trafficking, labor trafficking. Actually, organ trafficking. It's different in different parts of the world.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. We in the United States, we're not a law enforcement agency, so sometimes people hear that and they'll call OUR if they hear of something. We tell people to call the local law enforcement, because we're not a law enforcement that can go do anything. But we have 5 regions across the world, and our operations teams, we help with undercover, we help with information, and then we work with law enforcement in all these different countries to go in and to do the rescues alongside with them, with the law enforcement.
Right.
So, and then we also we don't run an op in other countries unless there's aftercare on the ground. And so we always make sure that, because if aftercare is not there, it doesn't really matter how many you rescue. You need to have the aftercare, because that's when the real work begins, is with the aftercare. So that's what OUR does. And I just started out as a mom that saw this problem, that I just wanted I wanted people to hear it and to understand. And then that's the hard part, is because understandably, people don't want to hear it.
Yeah. How did you start seeing the problem? Because I remember we lived in Boise, and this was in like 2008. And our neighbors came over to our house and started telling us that their church was funding these charities to fight sex trafficking for children. I remember thinking, like, what are you even talking about? Not the United States. Like, you're crazy. Like, I literally thought they were crazy. And I was just so naive to the whole thing. And that was like the first time I had ever heard anything about it. So, and then I later on, someone introduced me to the documentary Operation Toussaint, which was Tim Ballard's. And so how did you even had you been aware of it before? When you saw this or heard about it, how did you start thinking I want to volunteer for this? I mean, how did that even come up?
I saw a documentary, and it was just one of those things of I need to do more.
Yeah.
The first time I said I'd like to volunteer, again, they were just getting started. They had me show up at a screening. I was the volunteer. I had no idea what I was telling people. I'm like, what am I supposed to say? And they're like, just say anything, because they were brand new too. Sometimes they've grown a lot, but sometimes people forget that they were grassroots. They started, just not nice. So I just learned little by little. I just felt like we needed to be more aware of what's happening around the world, because there are areas where they have to go in and they rescue them. But talking about what's happening here now in our country, a lot of that is online. They're being groomed. You got online games now where they're wearing headsets. They're playing other people, and those other people may be disguising themselves as a 10-year-old boy, but it's really a 65-year-old groomer, and they're very, very patient.
Right.
So they're talking to your kids. They're finding all about your kids. They're grooming them all along. They're talking on those headsets about problems and just all sorts of things like that.
So you think technology in the United States is probably the number one place where most people are having issues? I think technology is a huge part of it. Yeah, it's much easier for them on technology than to go out and grab them. Yeah. Which is what we protect against. The other thing with kids, and even with my kids, with little kids, they don't want to hear about it. It's scary, which it really is. But it's learning how to help people understand how to be safe, how to keep their kids safe, but not be terrified of living as well. Right. But one of those big things that any groomer will look for is vulnerabilities. If your family is solid with solid values, you have really good relationships with your kids, you're the person that your kids are going to. So all of these things we talked about previously, that plays into it. There are the values to help protect your children.
Yeah, it helps protect them. If you're at the crossroads, if you know what your kids are doing, if you're having conversations, they feel like they can come to you. That's you've fought the battle right there. Yeah. But technology, definitely be very aware of who your kids are talking to, what apps they're on, games, the gaming. When Tucker and I were growing up, you'd play Space Invaders, and it was a
one-way communication.
Right. And
you control the machine. And
now it's a whole different thing. So
I had to put a quarter in.
So Tucker, as Sherri has entered this new career and this journey, what was your thought at the beginning as she started putting more time and energy?
Well, I was actually happy for her, and still am, because she's the type that she has to be actively engaged in good things and have a purpose. Yeah. I think
we all do at some point, right?
I think we do. But I also think that the timing was really good for her because, with 4 kids growing up, I mean, that's the purpose. I'm the mom.
Was your identity.
I'm taking care of all this. And all of a sudden, my youngest 2 leave on missions within a week, and she's going, okay, well, why am I here? What? I don't have a purpose.
What's next?
Okay.
And I really did do that.
I think Kelsey and Lexi.
I walked around just moping.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I don't know what to do with my life.
And so, and so it was really good for her to get this passion and use her talents to do what she's done. And so I'm really 100% supportive of it, because I see how it affects her. I mean, if you get her, well, Jeff, you talked to her about it.
I love it.
You get her talking about it, and you can tell she's passionate. She loves it, and that gives her that purpose, and that gives her something to where she is using her talents to do one of the greatest things that you can do is help kids.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know Brandon asked if it was. He asked if you were going to feel comfortable talking. I go, oh yeah, she loves it. Like this, I feel like this is how our relationship became stronger, is on this topic, and it's cool. I said she's super passionate about it. You can feel it, which I love. I think it's amazing.
I think if people in the world can have more conversations about it to understand that it is happening and it is here, then we protect more children that way.
That's awareness.
Whether it's with the nonprofit that I work for, or if it's with another nonprofit. Another thing that I do, I tend to get myself I tend to get myself really involved in things, sometimes too much. But I'm also a CASA, which is something that
She's
people
very
can do.
focused.
That's awesome.
And a CASA is a court-appointed special advocate in Utah. They have them all over Utah, and you're an advocate for children in the court system.
Okay.
Those are vulnerable kids. They're either in foster homes or they've been removed from their home, and they're trying to get them back into their home. There's a whole number of reasons why kids are removed from the home and things they're going through. But with the CASA program, like I'm assigned a case. One case, I actually had four kids with two different placements. Right now, I just have one. But there's so many ways that only you can help in your own families, but that you can go out in the community and help. And every kind of thing like this helps kids in that vulnerable place.
Right.
And builds, some structure and some support for them.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I love that you say that the most important thing we can do is strengthen our own families, because it also gives an example for other people in our communities. It's like if they have a strong example to look at, then they're not going, oh, yeah, what do they know? They're going, we probably ought to listen because it's had some good results. And then obviously once you know those things, you can go and pour into other people's lives as well.
And then we have to realize it's happening and not sweep it under the rug, because the problem's getting bigger. The pandemic. And
Everybody wearing masks and
not just that, but you think about it. We shut down schools. We had stressed out parents. We sent kids home to get online for school. And it kind of grew that way. And those kids who had maybe more vulnerabilities, all of those after school programs, teams, all of those things where they would go and somebody would look for them were all of a sudden gone.
Yeah.
So that did create probably more of a problem, but it's people, everyday people that fix it and that solve it and that step up. It's even at that with the organization we're with. A lot of people say, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And at the end of the day, most of these organizations out there are nonprofit. They're looking for donors. So you can donate, but you can also talk about it, learn about it.
Yeah. Because you can donate not only with money, but also time.
Yeah,
that's another.
Yeah, you can. We've had volunteers that will do booths that'll talk about
bring awareness.
And
I think too. I mean, we were talking about all this right now, but the number one thing you can do is make sure your family has a good foundation. That's number one, right?
Yep.
And if we're doing that, then obviously this is kind of the next thing we can be doing is bringing that awareness and donating and.
Yeah.
And realizing that a lot of the stuff that's happening, especially politically in our country right now, I mean, there are some people that don't realize that the things they're voting for are costing an entire generation their lives, these young children, their entire lives. And they don't, maybe they don't realize. I think some of them are starting their, there's a lot of people that are awfully quiet now that we're a couple of years into this administration that I think realize like, oh, maybe this was a mistake. They're kind of embarrassed to admit it now, right? But I think that as you see these, one of the things you mentioned was these gender, fluidity issues that are happening in our country. And, I posted today, the podcast posted one of the things about homeschooling. I homeschool my kids. And mainly, I posted some about, I don't have to worry about, my kids' teachers having a purple hair with a pride flag in the back and then a shooter who's mentally ill coming in the school. And these are all mental illness issues, and it's not like, I think they're it's a simple solution, but it's hard to solve because it takes a lot of time and energy and effort. There's a saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. And it's true. And we have to have strong families to have a strong community. And in order to have a strong community, raise up strong kids, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think it's, because I know in the United States, I think the United States is like the
number one consumer
of sexual material, pornography, all that. And obviously that's a direct cause of a lot of this stuff. And I don't know if it's direct or indirect, but it's a major issue.
Yeah, we are the number one consumer.
Okay.
Americans are the number, because some people will say, why do they go overseas? Well, we're the number one consumer, so we are part of the problem.
Yes. So we think this happens in other countries. It actually is were
Yeah.
contributing to it the most.
Yeah, what I didn't
Yeah.
realize, like when I was saying back in 2008, I didn't realize like it's probably happening in your neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like regardless of what neighborhood you live in, there is trafficking happening in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening to this,
Yeah.
and that's hard for us to believe, but it is.
Well, I think we have a vision of what we have this vision of just the kidnappings, the taking them. We're not having a vision of how it's actually happening.
Right.
And that it's just much more subtle than that there's people in the United States that have been trafficked, and they go to school and they're on sports teams, and and nobody knows what's happening to them at home, and
Right.
you know,
or they live at home with mom and dad under their protective roof, but somebody, through electronic or internet or whatever's grabbed a hold of them and has some,
Manipulating their
collateral
mind.
on them and manipulates them into becoming a sex slave. And
Yeah.
that was one of the most intriguing things to me was, wow, this is happening. And parents don't even know that, their child is being pulled out of the house.
Plain sight,
Yeah.
right in your
Yeah.
home.
I mean, and there's lots of, when you were showing me some of those documentaries and some of those books about people that had happened to, it's just amazing to me how subtle and that it happened, and all of a sudden they're caught in this trap that they can't get out of.
Well, all change happens subtly, right? I mean, really, change happens subtly. If you go get in shape, it takes time, right? To get in good physical shape takes time, but it also can happen the other way. And normally, if like you're the one to start losing weight, it might take you 90 days or 120 days. But if you're not taking a picture every day, you really don't notice the change. But it happens the other way too. And I think people forget that you can lose your children slowly over a period of time if they have a negative influence, or there was a challenge in the family or something like that. And then all of a sudden someone seemed like they showed up to help them, but it wasn't the right person. Right. And then when they're vulnerable, like you said, they can lead them astray. And so what's the solution? Do you think, I think I'm kind of crazy. I'm like, I don't let my kids on electronics. Like I might let my kids have my phone once every 3 months, maybe.
I think just being involved, you can't tell each family. I don't think you can give them each their own. This rule that it applies to everyone.
Yeah.
You've got to know your own family, the way you are. But my personal stance, my personal belief, I've told a lot of people this, that we're here on earth, we have children, and we have stewardship over our children first.
Yeah.
We are the ones with stewardship over our children to teach them, to be there for them. And if everyone on earth took that completely serious, we wouldn't have a problem.
Oh, it's not like our current president said your children aren't your children recently?
Yeah.
Come on, they're not even yours.
I totally believe different than that. But I think that's where we start. I think it starts at home. Everything starts at home. Because it starts with if there's vulnerabilities that they're coming to their parents, that they're coming to loved ones who are going to tell them the right things.
Yeah.
It starts with when you're at home, you'll notice if friends or your kids' friends are acting strange, or sometimes maybe you can see something because you're paying attention, because you're caring about somebody else. And then that's generational, because as you're teaching your children how to be solid and how to be solid parents, guess what? They're in turn going to teach their children, and it's going to keep going down. But it has to be the priority and the focus. When we talk about Tucker with real estate, there was some years in there when our kids were wrestling, and he was asked to do the junior high program. And I used to just laugh and say, oh, well, he does real estate part-time, and then he coaches like full-time.
Yeah.
You know what? In those years,
It was awesome.
we got by. We did just fine financially. Our kids weren't hurting. We put food on the table, but we weren't making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what we were doing was investing in that time, and that was the way we chose to do it in our kids. And it was our kids that would come to us. It was other kids. And I wouldn't change that for anything, because to me, that was the success.
Well, it's paid off.
Having that relationship.
Yeah.
So
You were the neighborhood mom and dad, not just for your kids, but they also, their friends, I'm sure, were.
And I would just encourage parents of kids that are getting to their teenage years, make your house the fun house. Because if your kids are going to somebody else's house, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
But
the fun house, but with rules.
well,
with
There's
bumpers.
gotta
Like you
be
can go
boundaries
And a lot of food.
rules.
Yeah.
Exactly.
lot of food.
You can make it the fun house and have good rules. Okay.
Yeah.
And-
Well, and don't you think let me ask you this, don't you think kids are thriving for boundaries? Like I feel like
absolutely.
children act out if they don't have these. I feel like a lot of times when kids are going crazy, it's because they're trying to find those boundaries or find someone who says, hey, live this way. And then they start feeling like, oh, all right, I found this. This is a better way to live.
Yeah. We had in junior high one time, our daughter wanted to have a party after the junior high dance. And I said, all right. And I thought it was just a few kids. 75 kids later, my house is just full of junior high age
I'm
kids.
going to the store to get more food.
You know, junior high age kids that went to a dance that they all put on cologne. So, you know, that's a lovely smell, but fun. But one mom came she came to my door. She dropped off her child. She came to my door and I came walking up the stairs because Tucker, we were both just roaming levels of the house.
Yeah.
We were making our presence very, very known. And there was some kids at the door, and I went up to the door, and this mom was getting her son, and she said, "You are not staying here." And I came up and I said, "Hi, I'm the mom. I'm the homeowner." And she goes, "Oh, there is a parent here." And I said, "Yes, I'm here." And she goes, "Okay." And she looked at her son. She said, "You can stay for an hour." And I looked at her and I said, "Good for you."
Yeah.
She thought that nobody was there. She thought that it was just a free for all, and she was willing to say to her son, "You're not going to stay."
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, we need to applaud each other.
Yeah.
When things like that happen.
Yeah, when a parent actually
Applaud-
shows up that
yes,
cares.
Applaud the parent, and she let him stay. That same night, it was amazing to me, though, how many, and this is junior high age, but how many were there really, really late, and parents just weren't showing up. And I'd say, have you tried your mom again? Call them again. And a couple of kids, we finally, about 1 a.m., put them in our car and took them home.
Time to go home.
Again, it's the
Showing up.
showing up, being there, being at the crossroads.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it can be exhausting.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that it was all fun,
Yeah.
but you can always help other kids along the way, hopefully.
How rewarding is that, though?
Yeah.
Right? It's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just so much we can learn from each other. And, you know, I mean, you've raised great kids, and I think a lot of people are just trying to figure it out. There's a lot of maybe marriages that are just, they don't know what they're doing wrong. They can't figure it out. What advice would you have to somebody who's maybe in that situation? Because we've got to be good with our partner, number one, to be great parents. And I was just talking to somebody today that's struggling a little bit, and I just suggest this. You need to get some help. You need to get some help to help both of you, because both of you are doing your best. But you know, anyway, so any advice you would give to those who may be struggling in their marriage to get on the same page or strengthen that part of it so they can be the parents that they want to be?
Or another way to ask that is because every marriage has had struggles. When you guys were struggling, what are the most effective ways you guys used to be able to deal with those challenges? Was it people, mentors, counseling? What are some of those things?
Well, I guess I'll go out on this. I think the first thing is, you know, we talked about that time when we were on the fence. You know, we going to go to church? We're not going to go to church. If it's true, we should. If it's not, then let's not. Yeah. Well, when we made that commitment, it made all the difference in the world. Yeah. Now, as a married couple, and I'll speak for myself. She can speak for herself, but. When we got married, there was never any thought in my mind that, oh, you know, if we don't get along, we're going to get divorced, or, you know, that just never came up in my mind. Right. Okay, so I think first of all you got to have a strong commitment, and then the other thing is, and this develops over time. You've got to realize that you're both going to have differences, and it's not. Because she's different than me in this way doesn't make that bad or my way bad. Right. You know, we can probably find some middle ground that works to where we can agree and make things much better. And I think just having that thought process and never thinking that, you know, splitting up or divorce is the answer. Yeah, it's because nothing good ever comes of that.
No. For anybody. Do you think you got that perspective from Faith? Like, do you think or was it maybe from your parents, or was it from, where did you get that perspective? Because Kelsey and I got married at 21 and 19, and
So did we.
yeah, that's what you guys said that, and it wasn't easy and we struggled financially. We struggled in our relationship for a year or two. I mean, it was very hard. But now today, like, our marriage is absolutely incredible. But I feel like same thing. Like, I've always told her, I'm the most loyal guy you'll ever meet in your life. Once I make a decision, you never have to worry about me. I'm committed 110%. And I actually think I got that from sports. I got that from boxing. Like, I knew I needed a team. I knew that if I was going to win, I had to have someone have my back the whole way, willing to tell me the truth. And so I think sports bred that in me, because I didn't start going to church until I was 19, 20 years old, right? So I didn't have that in my youth, and my childhood was just not a great environment, right? So where do you think you got that committed perspective from? Like, hey, this is it. Was it faith? Was it sports? Was it?
I think you can roll some of that all up into one thing. I mean, you learn a lot of great things in sports.
Yeah.
And commitment is definitely one of them. If you want to be successful, it's like the losing weight analogy. You got to be there every day. And as a parent, you got to show up every day. And as a spouse, you got to show up every day. But you've also got to have that faith element too, because when things get ugly, and they're not, because it's not always, sunshine and roses, as we know.
Right.
You've got to have showed up every day, and that's what gets you through those hard days, because you still got to show up, even though we might be fighting, or we might have a disagreement, or whatever it is, maybe the bank account's in the negative, or something like that. You work together because you figure it out, and as you get going and do that, the more you do it, the stronger you become, and when you become a strong team, I mean, that by yourself, you're only so good, but when you've got the right person with you, I mean, exponentially, your influence and things that you can accomplish is much, much greater.
Yep.
That's really how you have to look at these things. And I think that's really, I don't know, I'm not sure exactly where I would have got that, other than, I had really strong influence from my grandparents that were that way. My parents, through thick and thin, stuck through everything. Her parents built 2 businesses together, and great family, and
so you did have some great examples in your
we
life
really did.
Of marriages and families that had,
I was just, when we were married for about 5 years, I don't know where it was. I remember my mom told me one day, she goes, I didn't think you and Tucker would last past 2 years. I said, you didn't? I was like shocked. And I said, why? She goes, it just wasn't good. You guys were not getting along. We were like, it was and I was very vocal about everything, but I was actually kind of, I was shocked that
Thanks,
she
Mom.
thought that.
you never thought that, even though it was
never
tough.
occurred to me.
Yeah.
It never occurred to me that we wouldn't make it. I will say this. For me, I've never questioned Tucker's loyalty.
Yeah.
So that says a lot about him. I've never had to have that fear,
Concern.
that fear or concern that I've never questioned that he would be there for me and that he was in it to stay in it. I think as time has gone on too, because every stage of life, it's like where you guys are at now, right now with your kids and the ages you're at, it's going to change again, and you're going to have to adapt and evolve again. And as your kids grow up and they leave home, all of a sudden you're looking at a person that you're like, oh, who are you? Because I knew you as the parent.
Yeah.
And now we're together a lot. And so you adapt and grow again. But for me, really, I just knew initially that I was committed. I'd had that good example, but to continue growing in it, we have each individually taken the time to strengthen our relationship with our Savior.
Yeah.
And as we do that individually, it strengthens us together. We, like I said before, we're a lot different. So even in the way we study, even the way we worship, our scripture study in the mornings, our quiet time, we're different in those ways. So we don't often do things together. I know I hear about couples who will study together, or they'll listen to self-help things together.
Yeah.
We're not interested in the same type of thing.
That's Kelsey and I. We do a lot of similar things, but hard to do them together.
Yeah. And but we've each grown together, and then I can talk about little human behavior things and he can make fun of them, and that's great.
Yeah, it's interesting what you just said there, because one of my mentors, he always told me, he said, Jeff, if you want your kids to feel secure in your life, the most important thing you can do for your kids to feel secure is them watching you two love Christ the most, right? And if they watch you love Christ unconditionally, and then you guys love each other unconditionally because of how you love Christ and walking in those footsteps, they'll feel secure. And if they feel secure, they'll come to you with problems. And it always made a big impact. And he told me that just one day randomly, like Rome was probably a couple of weeks old. And, I know why now he told me that, because you have a new baby, all your attention all of a sudden ends up on your child. And I'm grateful. We had a great marriage prior to having kids, but it does, after you have a child, 100% of your energy goes on that child, So
yeah, I almost feel like it's maybe impossible to have a bad relationship if you're doing all those things right. If you're maybe praying together, like you're saying, you're studying or we have our Come Follow Me stuff we do with New Testament, right? And you're doing that with your family. It's almost like if you're doing those things, yeah, there's still problems, still things that come up, but they don't seem to blow up.
They're not catastrophic.
They seem to kind of work themselves out.
Yeah, and I think it all stems from that commitment, right? That Tucker's saying. Like, if you have that commitment, you're always solutions based. Like us getting stuck in the truck the other day. Blake said something. He goes, "Man, I've been stuck with so many guys. We got stuck twice. Can you believe it, Brendan? Like the first time was okay, but the second,
I've done that.
Second time was totally
the
on
same
me.
guy pulled us out twice, which is funny." But he said, I've been stuck with a lot of guys in my life, and this one is so much better because of you guys just chose to have fun, right? You guys are looking for solutions. We just pulled out the shovel, start digging, figure it out.
What else are you going to do?
Making it adventure, we don't, and so I think the same perspective happens, right, with marriage or family, with kids, or like, hey, we're in it. Here we are. Let's figure out a way to fix it, right?
And I think you got to, go ahead.
I was just saying something that's been fun too is watching our kids through that stage. Our kids become parents and watching them figure it out. That was a really hard, that's a hard transition. I think for mom, even more than dad, because really for mom, it's been even more, I think sometimes of your whole life. And we had 3 boys and 1 girl. And to watch my boys, these were my little boys they were my little boys. And all of a sudden this other woman is more important in their lives. And, when it first happens, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Because with your daughter, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Your daughter, you're still best friends. And then one day you look at it and you're sad to lose that little boy. But how awesome is that they've grown up just the way you wanted to them, that they're honoring their wife first, as they should. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But it was hard to make that transition, to let go of that, not wanting to be, the one that they brought, the dandelion to.
Yeah.
To change from that. And yet here they are doing exactly what it is I wanted them to do.
I think it's pretty common, right?
I love that you bring this up, because when I had messaged you that day to be on the podcast was because Kelsey and I were having this conversation about your boys and their marriages. And I think actually Walker had come over for dinner one night. And we're just like, man, they're just such incredible kids, which is a huge testament to your kids. And we're just like, in order to have children like that, you have to have incredible parents, And so it's cool that you say that, because we see that. We do. We see that, and obviously it's Kelsey's family, but even how many families have extended family and they just look at them and go, man, I'm so impressed by them, that what is the common denominator of what's caused all of these incredible children, And obviously it's you guys, and then love to learn all these lessons that you guys are pouring into us.
Well, thank you. And a little bit of luck, We gotta be honest.
Blessings, luck.
Yeah, I was going to say blessings always help. Yeah,
But
for sure.
I think you got to look at it as a long game too.
Yeah.
It really is. Life is a long game. Parenting's a long game. Eternity's a long game. And I think I'll go back to that time when we made that decision. We're gonna go to church. It's true. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And all those years. We'd watch friends, we'd watch family that would, they'd be gone Sunday, enjoying themselves, and and then social media happens, and you see them posting it on social media. They're all out having fun, but I look, here we are down the road from that time, probably 30 years plus. And I look at where our family is, our children, their spouses, our grandchildren, and I can look back at those others that we were looking at back then going, yeah, here we decided to go to church. They're all out having fun or whatever they're doing, but not going to church.
Right.
And making that commitment. And I would not trade for any of it. I would not trade their family situations for what I've got.
It's awesome.
There's no way.
Yep. I love it. I think the two things I got from today that were pretty powerful is, number one, go to church, right? So if someone's listening to this, I think if you're not going to church, make the decision to just get involved, go to church, make that decision.
Have Christ in your life.
Mm-hmm. And then number two, make a decision to build a solid family. You do those two things in the long game, you're going to look back on your life and compare all the things that we look at, and whether it's social media or whatever, because I think it's important. People always in our business say compete, don't compare, but I don't know. I think you should compare. That's what we're just doing now, comparing other people's lives and being grateful we made these choices, right?
Well, but it's got to be a long game comparison.
Yep.
The short game comparison is going to give you it's through the wrong lens.
Different outcome.
Wrong lens.
Yep.
I think also with that comparison with social media, because it's a thing that, we all do it. We all look at social media and we're
Highlight
like,
reel.
what do they have?
Yeah.
How come they get to go on that lavish vacation? And we forget that we just did something cool too. But at the same time, my kids have almost always told me that their favorite vacations were some of our cheapest vacations. It wasn't always the most expensive, but it was that forced time together. That time together and
Deliberate.
Deliberate. It was deliberate,
sometimes it's
but
forced
it wasn't
intentional.
It wasn't necessarily lavish or beautiful, but it's some of our best memories. We came together on that. So I think it just looks different for everyone, but that core value just becomes so important.
For sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I know most people on vacations on Instagram, and you look at them, they didn't go shoot a moose with 6 points, right? And you get this look.
That was good news.
So you always got to remind yourself that.
But years ago, I decided, it was when I was going through this downtime with, my kids were growing up, they were gone, nobody needed me, woe is me. And then I was like, I don't have any talents, I don't even have anything to do. I just going down the dark hole. And then Tucker kept saying, well, try doing this. And I finally decided, well, I can just do something new. Because if I do something new, it's an experience. I don't have to know anything about it. I don't have to be an expert. I don't have to be good. I can ask somebody what to do. I don't even have to do it again if I don't like it. And I started doing that. It kind of pulled me out of things that I started doing. Every month I would just find something new to do. And it's amazing what it did for me just to experience life differently, not thinking I have to show up and be perfect at it. And I think that's the same thing with parenting. Mm-hmm. You don't have to show up and be perfect. You just have to show up.
Yeah, I think I've said that before. A piece of advice I got to say, hey, you don't have to be perfect 100% of the time, just 51% of the time, right? Just make more good decisions. You make bad decisions, you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
So often, so many of us just, we feel like we have to do all these perfect things to measure up, and we don't. I think what a great piece of advice. Well, thank you guys for being on today.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. This has been amazing. I think so many people are going to get so much out of today of just how to live a solid life.
I agree. Yeah, I just love learning from you, and I could ask you questions all night just because I love to learn as much as I can from successful people. So I appreciate you being here, and I've learned a lot, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot out of this one. So
well, good. Well, thank you. Thank you for what you guys do, because it's people like you spreading messages that make a difference.
Well, it's got to start with stuff like this, getting this message out to people, and this is a great way to do it.
Yeah. I think what we love about it too is just that it was kind of sort of by accident how we got here. It was obviously, we can say it was God or whatever, but yeah, it was kind of just morphed into this message, and we just love it.
Yeah.
It's been a fun journey
far.
far.
It's never really an accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, true.
I agree.
Good point.
Yeah. So thank you guys again.